Chapter 1. Zane Myles. He pointed a knife at me, his mana flaring with raw, untamed emotion. "You conniving little bastard!" Anya Kyle snarled, his face a mask of pure rage. The blade glinted, aimed straight for my chest, promising a quick, ugly death. I felt Lila and Jordan behind me, small, terrified presences clinging to my back. He was going to kill us. All of us. My world shattered in that moment, but I couldn't stop. Couldn't delay. That world was going to end abruptly, 3 hours earlier. The old mana lamp above Jordan's bed whined, a constant low hum in our small apartment. I pressed the back of my hand against his forehead. Too hot, still. My system's calm diagnostics registered his mana flux as erratic, his pulse too high. He needed rest, not the restless, feverish sleep that had plagued him for days. A quiet alert flashed across my vision. System update. Diagnostics on Jordan Myles. Fever, pain and weakness, heavy soul force fluctuation. Some corruption indicated. I sighed, a low, frustrated sound. I hated the system's designation for mana. Soul force. Such a dumb word. Mana had worked for thousands of years. Why change it to soul force? It wasn't like mana was of the soul. It made no sense. I disregarded the alert and returned to the training room. Once there, I pulled my training sword from its scabbard. The worn leather of the hilt felt familiar, grounding. My own stats, usually so stubbornly normal, hummed with an almost imperceptible undercurrent. Unusually high mana purity. My basic inherited system, which typically only tracked vitals and minor mana fluctuations, logged it as it always did. A curious anomaly, nothing more. I knew there were advanced add-ons that allowed more system functions to come through, even giving the AI a bit of personality, but I didn't have one and didn't really want one. I'd heard they could be distracting. My mother loved hers, but my father had stripped his down ages ago, though not before using it to create a training simulation for me. I held the sword loosely, letting its weight settle. My father's image-based training system flickered to life in front of me, a ghostly projection of his own sword form, fluid and precise. It was clever, really, a connected system teaching method designed specifically for me. It created a visual guide to the Stormflow, his mana method or soul force method for everyone else. Most people use their soul force method to develop their core, allowing the system designer, the AI everyone used with system function, to manage their method, including updates, upgrades, stat allocation, and experience gained. My father's system allowed for some of that, but not with the actual application of the mana method to the swordsmanship itself. His style was simple when it came to applying swordsmanship and the mana method. You had to do it yourself. You needed to control your soul force directly. He believed it was the true path for magic swordsmen, a seamless blend of steel and energy. Father argued real mastery was in making soul force an extension of your will, a silent partner in every move. For him, it was impossible to completely distinguish the two. This was separate from skills or techniques that were system-driven, a unique path for those who sought to push beyond conventional limits. It meant the best magic swordsman would eventually use a combination of both. I focused on the first stance of the Stormbringer, letting my breath synchronize with the ghostly outline of my father's movements. Form. I was a mid-guard position that kept the blade out in front, with the soul force application on the spine of the blade at an 80-20 ratio. Before continuing with the next sequence, I glanced at the battered leather-bound journal resting on the small table beside my training mat. It was a recent addition, a set of compiled notes from my father, detailing what he called the doctrine of the living blade. Not inherited, he'd written in his scrawling hand on the first page, but earned. Each one cost him something. Below that, he'd outlined the first principle, stonewake, the style of survival, nicknamed the first stand. Its philosophy was simple. If you can stand, you can fight. If you can fight, you can live. It was raw, brutal efficiency. Blocks, low counters, unpolished but effective, incorporating raw body reinforcement and pure alley fighting instinct. This was how you survived the verge. Not pretty, not clean, but alive. It taught presence and pressure even when you're outmatched. I made a mental note to reread the section on Stonewake's core concepts. It was the foundation, the one that looked the most like normal swordsmanship, yet prioritized survival over elegance. It also hinted at something else, something personal. Mana stirred in my core, responding not with a roar, but a disciplined hum. It was like tuning a delicate instrument, guiding the energy through my meridians, letting it flow into the blade. extending my reach, sharpening my edge. This wasn't about raw power, it was about precision and practicality, about making the mana an extension of my will, a subtle force flowing through me. I pictured the application, the mana like an invisible cloak around the steel, making it faster, stronger, subtler. Just as I adjusted my grip, feeling the mana settle into the familiar rhythm, a heavy knock rattled the front door, echoing through the apartment. My concentration broke. Who the hell was that? I moved quickly, sword in hand, my heart hammering a different rhythm against my ribs. Lila appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes narrowed. She didn't like surprises. None of us did. I pushed the thought away and unlatched the door. Standing on our modest stoop was a man I recognized, though barely. His face was weathered, his eyes shadowed. But the set of his jaw, the way he held himself, it was Anya Kyle, one of my father's old teammates from the Skybreakers, their prestigious dungeon diving group. He looked haggard, like he had just fallen off a transport. I hadn't seen Anya in years. He stopped diving, and I thought he was living it up in the resort towns on the coast. Before I could ask any questions, he held out his hand. He held something that made my blood run cold. My father's wrist-mounted mana bracelet, the one he never took off. Zane. Anya Kale's voice was rough, uncharacteristically flat. Kid, I have bad news. My breath caught. No, not this. It's your parents, Zane, he said, his gaze not quite meeting mine. There was an incident, a spell pollution event, deep in the Forgotten Realm. We lost them, both of them. The words hit me like a physical blow, stripping the air from my lungs. My father's bracelet, still in Anya Kale's hand, felt like a lead weight. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Lost them, both. Anya Kale stepped forward, his face a mask of grim sympathy. Here, kid. This belongs to you now. He pressed the bracelet into my hand, and before I could react, it clasped around my wrist with a soft click. The moment it locked into place, my vision exploded, not with light but with data. A torrent of pop-up screens, like 1,000 miniature interfaces firing at once, flooded my sight. My head reeled. System initializing. Updating. Core synchronization detected. Host identity confirmed. Zane Myles. Welcome, Zane. It's about damn time. It's about damn time, I muttered aloud, the words escaping before I could stop them. Eva's voice, not a thought, but a distinct presence, now active in my head for the first time, was a whirlwind of frantic energy, a cacophony of processes I couldn't comprehend. Anya Kale froze. His eyes, fixed on the glowing bracelet on my wrist, widened in sudden, stark alarm. I watched as his eyes went black, not like he scowled, like his eyes went dark. The sympathy on his face vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. He moved, fast. His manner flared with raw, uncontrolled emotion, not just rage, but a desperate, animalistic fear.
You little bastard! Anya Kale snarled, his voice a guttural roar, laced with genuine venom.
The blade he drew from beneath his coat wasn't a training dummy. It was a well-used combat knife, its edge honed to a wicked gleam, aimed straight for my chest. It was you! It was you the whole time, you goddamn fool! I barely reacted in time. My mana method, that learned instinct from countless hours of training, kicked in on its own. I threw my weight back, my movement footwork guiding my body in a clumsy but effective dodge. The knife sliced the air where my heart had been a split second before, a searing whisper of cold steel against my tunic. My own training sword was already up, a desperate parry that met his follow-up strike with a jarring clang. The vibration shot up my arm, numbing my fingers. He was a whirlwind of practiced violence, faster than my father's simulations, stronger than any sparring partner. He was a veteran, a killer, every move honed by real blood. I was 15, and my training was theoretical. He pressed the attack, a relentless torrent of strikes. Each parry rattled my bones, forcing me back, stumbling over my own feet. But it was also off, like his timing was being messed up, altered at the last moment. What was happening? I could feel my mana surging, but it was wild, untamed, trying to keep up with the sheer ferocity of his assault. This wasn't about form or precision. It was survival, ugly and desperate. I set my feet and focused. First style, Stonewake, the style of survival. I needed to focus, to let the Stormbringer stabilize and breathe to find its flow. But the primal terror for Lila and Jordan clawed at my throat. Lila had walked out of the back rooms, and I could also hear Jordan's whimper. He feinted high, a quick jab meant to draw my guard, then dropped into a low sweep, aiming for my legs. My eyes tracked the blade, years of simulation kicking in. I twisted, barely avoiding the cut, and pivoted. My own blade a desperate, awkward arc. Again it was off. Everything eased off. By some act of the gods it connected. Not cleanly, but with enough force to rake against his cheek. A thin line of blood bloomed, stark against his weathered skin. Lucky, just lucky, Anya Kale roared. A sound of frustrated rage and something darker, a chilling desperation. His eyes now blazing locked onto mine. He raised his blade again, but this time I saw the shift, the flicker of raw intent. This wasn't a warning. Not even a brutal lesson. He wasn't just trying to wound me. He was trying to finish it. He was going to kill us. All of us. Yet he hesitated. "Run!" I screamed, the word torn from my lungs. "Lila, Jordan, run!" They didn't hesitate. I heard the frantic scramble of their bare feet, the door slamming open as they burst into the street. That was all I needed. That was all I cared about. My mana method surged, a desperate, uncontrolled burst that reinforced my entire body, a raw surge of the Stonewake philosophy without conscious thought. I met Anya Kale's final charge head-on, not with skill, but with a sudden savage power I hadn't known I possessed. Our blades clashed, a brutal, ringing protest of steel on steel. I threw every ounce of mana, every shred of will into the strike. It was messy, wild, but it had force. Enough force. He staggered back, wide-eyed, clearly not expecting my sudden berserk surge. My strike had bought me a precious half-second of shock. I didn't wait, didn't press the advantage. This wasn't my fight to win, not yet. This was my fight to escape. I gave a burst of mana that coalesced on the blade and struck him with all my might. To my surprise, he closed his eyes and took the blow. Anya took the blow like he was expecting it? Seriously, what was happening? I didn't ask questions. I turned and ran, bursting out the door and into the chaotic, sun-dappled streets of the lower verge, the piercing clang of Anya Kale's blade against the doorframe echoing behind me. Something was terribly wrong. My parents were gone, and a man I had known since I was a small child was trying to kill me. I grabbed Lila's hand, then picked Jordan up and ran with them along with me. My heart thundered, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. "Keep running!" I yelled, not looking back. "Don't stop!" We sprinted, a blur of desperate motion through the waking city, leaving everything behind. Chapter 2. Zane. "Zane Myles," I muttered, the words barely audible over the frantic drumbeat of my heart. I wasn't entirely sure what I was thinking when I told Lila and Jordan to run. It wasn't like we really had anywhere to go, and it wasn't like I could face an adventurer of Anya Kale's caliber, even if he was injured from whatever hell he'd just stumbled out of. All I knew was that I needed to get my siblings away from him, find a way to make a stand, to try to stop him. "Where do we go, Zane?" Lila was panting and Jordan looked pale. Damn it, this isn't good. Luckily, we'd burst out onto the suburban streets. Our neighborhood, with its neat rows of houses and manicured lawns, felt a world away from the chaos that had just erupted in our home. A home that just a few days ago was filled with laughter, fun, and loving, if not stressed, family. I couldn't help but think as I looked around for an escape. I was scared. Lord help me. I had the briefest vision of running away on my own. What could I actually do? Am I going to die here? Guilt hit me. There was no way I could actually do that. I wasn't going to leave my siblings. If I go down, we go down together. How quickly things change. My parents were some of the most successful adventurers in the world. My father, a master swordsman, and my mother, an elemental mage on par with some of the best. When Jordan first started getting sick a couple of years ago, they decided to take breaks from adventuring. But as our financial situation grew tighter and more money was needed to take care of Jordan, they went back to clearing dungeons and rifts to pay the bills. They'd called in specialists from all over the place, trying to deal with whatever form of sickness had gripped my little brother. I never did figure it out. It was a slow, agonizing thing, watching him fade. My little brother, the trooper he was, never complained, but it definitely made it hard. Mum and Dad were gone, and now they'd be gone for good. I forced myself to stop thinking about that. I'd worry about mourning or figuring out what the hell happened later. Now I had to get my siblings to safety. I ran, pulling them along, my mind scrambling through a list of neighbors we could go to. I sprinted down the street, my lungs burning, the streetlights blurring into streaks above us. Jordan's cough worsened, a wet, ragged sound that tore at my gut. He was stumbling, his small legs barely keeping up. Without thinking, I scooped him up, throwing him onto my back. He was light, too light, and his fevered skin radiated heat against my shirt. Lila, small but fierce, kept pace beside me, her hand still clamped in mine. Just as the added weight threatened to buckle my knees, a voice, clear and urgent, slammed into my mind. Ava, host in critical physical state. Sibling, Jordan Myles in worsening condition. Sustained evasion unlikely. Initiating emergency response protocols. I've got you, Zane. What the hell was that? Was all I could think. I don't have an interface that talks to me. When did that happen? What emergency protocols was it talking? A jolt, like being struck by lightning, surged through my entire being. It wasn't just mana, it was something wilder, something raw. My vision flickered, and a wave of heat washed over me, pushing back the fatigue, flooding my muscles with unexpected strength. Injecting emergency power, prioritizing host preservation, system guiding evasion path. Emergency reward for successful escape will be issued. The reward wasn't specified, but the sheer force of the power coursing through me was enough. My legs pumped harder, faster, carrying Jordan's weight as if he were a feather. My basic system had never done anything like this. This wasn't something a basic interaction with a system could do. My system wasn't just giving me data, she was actively intervening. The system's influence manifested as a subtle pull, a whisper in my awareness, guiding me to dart left, then right, down an alley I wouldn't normally take, past darkened storefronts. It wasn't a clear map, but a series of impulses, a sense of where to turn. Then, a shadow detached itself from the gloom ahead. Anya Kale. He stood at the end of the alley, his face a grim, predatory mask in the pale light. His blade was still in hand, glinting. He looked unconcerned by the blood on his cheek. "Give me the bracelet, Zane," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "It's not yours to have. It will kill you, boy." I looked at Anya's face. The black from his eyes was bleeding into his face. It was one of the most terrifying things I had ever seen. Breach detected. Preparing countermeasures. Stay alive, Zane. Help is coming. I set Jordan down. "Lila, take Jordan and run." "But—" "Now, Lila." They did, with Jordan coughing and wheezing the whole way. For some reason, Anya let them go. I stepped up to pull the sword out. He took a step forward, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not just rage, but a desperate need. This wasn't just a former teammate gone rogue. This was about the bracelet. My father's bracelet, the one he never took off. And what Anya had said when he first saw me activate it. "You goddamn fool!" Why was it so important? Why had my father, a legendary adventurer, died in a spell pollution event that Anya Kale had survived? And why did this man, who should have been a friend, want this simple wristband so badly he'd try to murder a kid for it? The questions hammered at me, even as instinct screamed for survival. Right now that wasn't important. My mind raced. Practicality slammed into me like a physical blow. The bracelet. This was about the bracelet. "Take it," I yelled, yanking my left arm up and tearing the shimmering band from my wrist. It flew through the air, a glowing silver arc, and landed at his feet with a soft clatter. Anya Kale looked down, a flicker of surprise on his face. He smiled an unnatural smile. He bent to pick it up, his guard momentarily down. As his fingers closed around it, the mana bracelet didn't just go dark. It pulsed once, a blinding flash of silver light, then melted. It dissolved into a puddle of molten metal and fizzling energy, smoking on the pavement like a dropped sparkler. Anya Kale stared at the residue, his jaw slack. Then his head snapped up, his eyes wide with a cold, terrifying fury. He hadn't expected that. No one expected that. "You fool!" he bellowed, his voice raw, distorted with rage. "You absolute, worthless, conniving little fool! That was the key. The last one!" His mana exploded outward, a furious red mana signature that crackled around him, thick with despair and murderous intent. He didn't hesitate. He lunged, his knife a blur aimed at my throat. His face was so strange, warring emotions, anger, despair, guilt. His form and movements continued to be off. I didn't have time to react, no time to summon mana, no time to think. But just as his blade was an inch from my skin, a new light erupted from my core. It wasn't the steady hum of my mana, but something ancient, fierce, and entirely new. A sword, shimmering with arcs of latent force, materialized in my right hand. It wasn't my training blade. This was a longsword silver, black-edged, rune-lined. It vibrated with a palpable presence, as if remembering every strike it had ever executed. Countermeasure deployed. Vair's Echo summoned. Willborn blade deployed. I didn't know how I knew its name or how it had appeared. My hands simply closed around its hilt, and its weight felt utterly, profoundly right. Anya Kale's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine shock piercing his rage. The knife strike, initially aimed to gut me, turned into a desperate, almost clumsy parry. Heir's echo met his crude blade with a ringing crack that sent a jolt of power up my arm, shaking Anya Kale to his core. He stumbled back, his knife arm hanging limp, his face a mask of disbelief and pain. He tried to recover, to lash out again, but then his eyes snapped wide, staring past me, unfocused. A sound ripped from his throat, not a roar of fury, but a choked, guttural gasp of pain. His body spasmed, a shuddering tremor running through his frame. His sword arm, the one still holding his knife, twitched, almost as if fighting itself. The furious red mana around him pulsed erratically, briefly flickering with a sickly, greenish hue, like bile. "No, not," he rasped, his voice strangely weak, laced with a new, horrifying strain. His head snapped back towards me, his eyes now glazed, but with a desperate plea trying to break through the madness. His lips moved, struggling to form words against a powerful, unseen resistance. "Zane! The throat!" The words were barely a whisper, distorted as if two voices were fighting for control of his tongue. He stumbled, falling to one knee, clutching his head, his face contorted, not with rage, but with excruciating effort, a battle raging within him. This was my chance, my one brutal chance. The Stonewake philosophy, the one my father wrote about, screamed in my head. Brutal efficiency, prioritize survival. Even when you're outmatched. I didn't understand why he'd given me the opening, why the rage had fractured into this agonizing struggle. But I knew what the throat meant. I knew what I had to do. I just pushed forward, not with skill, but with the raw, untamed power coursing through me, channeling it through this impossible blade. My movements were clumsy, but each swing of Heir's echo felt like it carried the weight of a mountain. Then the world tilted. The surge of power that had saved me now overwhelmed me. My body screamed in protest, my core burning, my head splitting. The strength drained away as quickly as it had come. My vision tunneled. The last thing I saw was Anya Kale, still on one knee, his face contorted in a silent, internal scream, his body spasming, trying to fight off whatever was consuming him. Then, darkness. The street, the threat, my siblings, all of it vanished into the black abyss. Chapter 3. 5 years later. Zane. The morning sun cast a pale glow over the worn rooftops of the lower verge, where the city's hum was a constant backdrop to daily life. I stepped out of our modest apartment, the door creaking softly behind me. The scent of brewed herbs and toasted bread wafted from the neighbouring windows, mingling with the crisp air. "Zane!" Elara, my childhood friend, called out from across the street, waving as she tended to her family's shop. I offered a brief smile and a nod, my mind already racing through the day's tasks. The city's pulse quickened as I moved, the familiar streets blurring into a tapestry of motion. I didn't just walk through the city, I moved through it. I focused on my core, feeling the familiar resonance. Mana channels cleaning at 1%, sequence clear, empowerment enabled. Morning, Zane. I rolled my eyes. Morning, Eva. You sound awfully chipper this morning. I missed you. I rolled my eyes again. Then, having a thought, I pulled out my book and made a note. Style 7, Manifest? That's a terrible name, Zane. I snorted. It's a work in progress, Ava. My core hummed as I put away my notebook, and the sweet rush of mana infused every fibre of my being. I leaned forward and then took off. Flush with power, I vaulted a low railing, pivoting on a rain-slicked wall. I flowed down the narrow spine of Verge sector, like the city itself had shaped a path just for me. My boots kissed stone. My gloves caught pipe. One leap blurred into the next. Stormflow circled my mana unconsciously now. Just a cloak of mana tight to my skin that empowered everything while I remained controlled, silent, efficient. My core didn't flare like most mages. It glowed, smooth and even, like glass-catching firelight. A resonance that whispered, not roared. I took in small amounts of World Veil, another stupid name for naturally occurring mana. This was something I had been practicing for some time. It was foolish. But it wasn't the first time I had done something foolish. A fruit vendor blinked as I passed, first on the roof, then the awning, then gone. In slow motion, I saw a transport mod drop what looked like a building brick from high in the air. That wasn't good. I reached for my system skill, Mana Blade, and activated it with a thought. Mana Blade formed. It looked like a throwing knife roughly 30 centimeters long with no handle. I charged the blade with extra mana. Skill use, Blade charge. I tossed the blade and it connected with the brick and burst. People were going to get dusted, but that was better than someone dying in the dumbest way possible. A little girl by a cafe turned just in time to catch a blur of black and silver above her head. She gasped. Her father looked up, squinting at empty air. "Did you see that?" she whispered. I was already 3 rooftops away. The verge was still asleep, mostly steam rising from heat grates, couriers yawning as they loaded spell-slick packages into hover carts. Arc lamps buzzed with stored pulse charge from the night shift. Delivery drones hummed low overhead. "Ava, the system is trying to give another update." Did this one fix the patch from last time? I could feel Ava's annoyance, which was interesting because she was an AI and not supposed to have feelings. "Ava, no, from what I can tell, they just made it worse. The kingdom had to make it difficult. Everyone connected to the world through the system personal interfaces that wired to their core, syncing thought to spell, body to device. A lift of the hand summoned light. A blink triggered route mapping. A silent whisper loaded spells into defense glyphs. Magic was the world pulsing through its streets, powering its tech, lighting its homes. I dropped onto a service balcony, crossed it in 2 steps, and jumped. A 3-story gap. Clean. Precise. I hit the far edge with a thump that never echoed. My hood caught the wind, the seal at my neck flaring faintly to keep it secure. Another alley. Another wall. I ran up it like it owed me something. By the time I reached the old tram lines, barely active at this hour, my heart rate hadn't even spiked. Mana cooled in my veins like tempered steel. A notice flashed across my vision, faint and clean. Assignment confirmed. 1 delivery. Sub-District F. Class 2 gate access. You were 15 seconds faster yesterday. I am so disappointed in you. I smiled, just barely. Ava. She was so cheeky. More creds, more grind. Less attention, that's all I wanted. My siblings and Jordan's medical bills were a constant hum beneath every thought. I landed hard, knees flexing as I absorbed the shock atop a flat, weathered rooftop on the city's outer edge. I'd been running for nearly 20 minutes, vaulting walls, dashing along rails, slipping through mana barriers like smoke in a bottle. Now, as I crouched in the shadow of a rusting ventilation spire, I finally exhaled. The cloak of suppression fell from my body like mist. Mana bloomed. It didn't explode outward, didn't roar, didn't spark, but expanded quiet, steady, potent. My aura didn't scream, "Look at me." But the moment I let it breathe, every nearby sensor flickered. Every ambient thread of magic bent just slightly toward me. Even from this distance, the inner city shimmered with layered enchantments and elegant power. Skytrams zipped above me, gliding on humming lay rails, glowing elevated paths of stabilized mana that ran like veins through the capital's twin spine. New Leora City and the Academy District. Most people didn't walk anymore. They didn't have to. Mana-tuned travel was too efficient, too ingrained, especially in Upper Crown Ward, where nobles and officials flowed like silk through their elevated lives. I preferred the rooftops and to train my mana control because the power in the world wasn't worth a damn if you couldn't control it. That was one of the last lessons my father ever taught me before he died. I tried not to think about that night 5 years ago. I simply remembered my father's lessons. Power was worthless without control. The sprawl beneath me glittered with glass walks, hovering platforms, and floating districts tied together by shimmering bridges and veils of warded air. Monolithic towers reached toward the clouds, each one trimmed in their house's signature golds, blacks, silvers and greens, each a declaration of wealth, lineage, or power. At the city's center, higher than the government citadel, higher even than the sky court halls of the noble houses, floated the crown jewel of Eastern academia, Corvallis Arcs, the Academy of 9 Pillars, the most elite magical university in the known world, at least according to the Empire. Its towers were made of crystal-forged mana glass and ancient bonded stone, designed to both conduct and resist magic. Different schools existed within its structure: sword, spell, mind, mana, world, law, alchemy, inscripture, and form. But it was more than an academic haven. It was a crucible, a proving ground for the future archmages, swordmasters, generals, tacticians, and heirs of the Empire. And I had gotten in on a combat scholarship. I didn't come from a noble line. I didn't have a sponsor. I won a tournament under a false name and was able to convince the judges to transfer it. Still not sure how I pulled that off. Move now. Think later. Cannot be late on the first day. I was racing against time, blood humming, breath steady, as the university's upper wards recognized my mana signature and peeled open the inner barriers to let me through. Students from all walks of life passed through those gates. Sons of noble houses draped in silk and arrogance, mercenary scholars dragging arcane gear behind them, prodigies with bloodline tags glowing over their hearts. Some walked, some glided in on mana skates, others arrived with heralds and glowing hover rigs. I landed in a crouch, coat snapping behind me, hood up. No crest, no entourage, no announcement. Just a core so pure the mana sensors had to shiver before registering me. You made it 33 seconds faster than on your practice run last week. My Zane is finally growing up. I exhaled through my nose. Ava, shut up. Rude, but I'll allow it. You looked cool. How kind of you. We are around people that are very insensitive. Remember what we talked about. Lock it down. I don't want to answer any questions. I am not sure why you should have to pretend. Please, Eva. Fine, but this is dumb. Eva did what she was asked, locking away his secret. Thanks. Shut up, I am mad at you. Zane smiled at that. Chapter 4, Zane. I am a normal college student. Normal college student. I am not going to stand out. I am not going to stand out. My thoughts hiccuped as I walked through the grounds of the academy. What a magnificent place. And this was just the landing area, where kids got dropped off and picked up. Groups of students were already moving together as upperclassmen directed freshmen to various places. Dorms, orientation halls, student aid. It was a mess of excitement, yelling and craziness. The whole thing was insane, really. I walked, trying to remain unnoticed, but saw a girl, probably an upperclassman, looking at me, surrounded by many people. She was maybe 5 feet tall, though it was hard to tell in the heels she was wearing, draped in pink silk and mana thread bows. Her curls shimmered like spun rose gold sugar. Her uniform had been tailored tightly. Every line of her blazer, every inch of enchanted heel demanded attention. Her smile looked like it had been practiced in front of 3 mirrors and a mana influencer. Pretty girl, like really pretty. She smiled at me. I had to look back over my shoulder. Strange. Pretty girls don't smile at me. I am boring. Commotion and distraction came as the air shifted, like the city itself had paused to inhale. A hush rippled through the crowd. Above them, a formation of sleek sky cars descended from the upper layers of the capital's lay track, their engines humming in harmonious synchronization, like tuned instruments in a symphony. They moved in perfect formation precision without effort, power without noise. At the center of the fleet, a vessel unlike the others glided into position, obsidian black and trimmed in deep violet. Its frame shimmered with subtle spell light, every line of its design whispering wealth and authority. It rotated once mid-air, just enough to catch the rising sun and scatter prismatic reflections across the courtyard, before descending with impossible grace. It didn't land. It settled, and then the door opened. She stepped out like light spilling into the world. Aurelia Vile Taranis. Oh, damn. Seriously. Aurelia Vale Taranis. Here. Like right now. Wow. Her robes moved like living silk, tailored mana thread catching the wind in waves. Her hair, pinned in a high twist, laced with silver and stormglass, gleamed faintly under the morning sky. But what drew every eye, what made the crowd part before her without a word, were the wings. Iridescent and spectral, the magic of her house manifested in twin arcs of glowing energy, like the suggestion of wings rather than physical ones, carved from light and pressure, humming with barely contained power. The Taranis crest glowed at her collarbone. They flowed to the ground. I swear it was like watching something in slow motion, and the moment she stepped forward, the crowd instinctively cleared a path, not out of fear, but out of reverence. A young man, clutching a bouquet of enchanted flowers, stepped forward hesitantly. Lady Aurelia, he began, his voice wavering. I've admired you from afar. Please accept these as a token of my affection. Aurelia's expression softened, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Thank you, she replied, her voice melodic. Your gesture is truly appreciated. She accepted the flowers with grace, her demeanor radiating warmth and kindness. Yet, beneath her serene exterior, a calculated mind assessed every detail, every potential threat. As she continued her procession, her gaze swept over the crowd, and for a split second, locked with mine. A jolt, sharp and unexpected, coursed through me, like my mana had suddenly resonated with hers. My senses heightened, picking up the subtle hum of her power, the faint scent of ozone clinging to her robes. Then, just as quickly, her eyes moved on, and the moment was gone. "Zane!" a familiar voice called out, breaking the trance. I turned to see my friends approaching. Kyle with his ever-present grin, Elaine, her eyes sharp and inquisitive, and Mira, who offered a shy smile, her cheeks tinged with pink. "You won't believe who just arrived," Kale said, excitement evident in his voice. "Aurelia Vael Taranis," Elaine added, her tone a mix of awe and skepticism. "She's even more impressive in person." Mira nodded, her gaze flickering between me and the direction Aurelia had gone. "Did you see her wings? They were breathtaking." I offered a non-committal shrug, my thoughts still lingering on the brief connection I felt. My friends chatted animatedly, but I remained somewhat detached, the weight of my responsibilities ever present. "You okay, Zane?" Mira asked, her voice gentle. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." We continued toward the university, the grandeur of the campus contrasting sharply with the modest life I led. As we walked, whispers about Aurelia's arrival buzzed around us, but I remained silent, my thoughts already on the deliveries I would need to make later. The orientation hall buzzed with anticipation as students settled into their seats. I, accompanied by Kale and Elaine, found a spot near the back. The holographic display at the front shimmered, preparing to project the university's welcome message. As the auditorium lights dimmed for orientation, my wrist console gave a subtle pulse. I glanced down at the flickering mana screen. "Princess Flyer, you said today was your first day. Did you make it? Hopefully. No one's trying to bully you already." A smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. I typed back with one hand, the other resting casually on my leg. "Sword wannabe, yeah. Just waiting for orientation to start." There was a whole scene at the front gate. Some noble descended in a skycar formation like she was royalty. Very dramatic. Pretty sure half the school's still talking about it. Their conversation had started in a realm known as the Swordmaster's Sanctum, a magically conjured space accessible only to those attuned to its unique frequency. Within this realm, enthusiasts and scholars gathered to discuss the elusive Swordmaster's manuscript, a legendary text said to contain techniques so powerful they could shift the balance of power in any conflict. Rumors claimed that fragments of the manuscript were hidden within various realms, waiting to be discovered by someone worthy. Kyle leaned over, catching a glimpse of my screen. "Is that your mysterious realm buddy again? What's her name, Princess Flyer?" Elaine smirked, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Sounds like someone has a magical admirer." Mira's expression shifted subtly, her smile faltering for a brief moment. "You two seem to spend a lot of time in that realm," she remarked, her tone light but tinged with something else. I shrugged, trying to deflect. "It's just a hobby, nothing serious." Kyle nudged me playfully. Sure. Just don't get too lost in the realms and forget about us." Elaine added, "Maybe we should join you in the realm sometime, see what all the fuss is about." Mira nodded, her gaze lingering on me. "Yeah, maybe we can all explore together." I forced a smile, the weight of my responsibilities pressing down on me. I had always kept my realm activities separate, a sanctuary from the complexities of my real life. Now that boundary was blurring. The orientation speaker droned on, talking about unity through magical integration and the ethics of interfacing. But my attention was nowhere near the stage. Another message pulsed across my interface. "Princess Flyer, wait, that girl who descended in the obsidian ship, that was Aurelia Vael Taranis, wasn't it?" I rolled my eyes and typed with one hand beneath the desk. "Sword wannabe. Yep, big shot heiress. It's so strange to see celebrities in real life." I didn't expect the response to come instantly, but it did. "Princess Flyer, ha! You tried to play it off like you were from somewhere small. I knew it. I knew you lived in the capital. You're here. You're totally here, and you totally go to my university. You might as well just confess who you are and agree to be my slave." I exhaled through my nose, lips tugging into a lopsided grimace. "Sword wannabe, what a strange thing to say. I never actually said I wasn't a student here. You just assumed too much, not like it was a hard guess, genius. Beat me first before you talk about slave work. And remember, strictly professional. No personal stuff. That was the rule." The message dots pulsed again. "Princess Flyer, totally professional. Just two sword nerds trading lethal techniques in a demiplane of honor and steel. While we flirt shamelessly, sword wannabe. When have I ever flirted with you, Princess Flyer, please? I know what I look like, and the avatar engine doesn't allow false renders even if it's not my true face. Don't pretend you haven't checked me out once or twice. You're clearly a leg man. It's fine. Honestly, flattering. Sword wannabe. You've been breathing in too much ether dust, and I am a butt man if you must know. Princess Flyer. Sure you are. Now you're just being stubborn. But hey, maybe we should meet. Just once. Say hi. Professionally, of course. My fingers hovered over the reply field. I knew exactly what she was doing, pressing just enough. A challenge wrapped in silk and sarcasm. The kind of message that danced the line between casual and curious. And maybe she wasn't wrong, because part of me, yeah, I wanted to say yes. Still, sword wannabe. I don't think that's a good idea. Not a good idea. The response took only seconds. Princess Flyer, why not? Sword wannabe, because if we meet, it changes things. I've got too much going on outside the realm. You wouldn't get it. There was a pause, long enough for me to think maybe that was the end of it. Then a soft pulse from my console. Not a message, but an image attachment. I stared at it, hesitated, then opened it. It was a picture, her leg stockings crossed. Just enough of a velvet-trimmed academy skirt in frame to be suggestive, without giving away anything explicit. The angle was playful, bold, daring me to react. A caption hovered beneath it. Princess Flyer, you sure? I'm very professional. I blinked, then sat back in my chair and muttered under my breath. Amazing. I wasn't exactly girl crazy, but I noticed a beautiful woman as much as the next hot-blooded man. And if those legs belonged to Princess Flyer gods, help me. The avatar was one thing. Real life was another. Clearly she was a pretty one. Princess Flyer, still strictly professional? My ears lit up like I'd been tagged by a fire glyph. I swiped the interface away fast, casting a quick glance around the room. Kyle was still nose-deep in his phone, half laughing at something no one else could hear. Elaine, as always, was scribbling notes in that slow, deliberate hand of hers. But Mira was watching, eyes narrowed, head tilted. She knew me too well. You good? She asked, voice low. Fine, I muttered, dragging my hood over my head. Just distracted. At the front of the hall, the orientation drone finished its welcome address, projection flickering as it looped through its scripted conclusion. Welcome to the 9 Pillars. May your time here be transformative. I slouched deeper into my seat. Transformative, yeah, that was one word for it.
Chapter 5, Aurelia Vielle Taranis. I set the message interface MIF down harder than I meant to. What a jerk. The MIF pulsed once dim and innocent on the lacquered edge of the floating study desk, before going quiet. I was in one of the upper-class lounges. It was actually my private lounge, the one Mother insisted I have. So you can focus, she had said with that infuriating smile of hers, knowing perfectly well that focus meant not be bothered by the peasantry. I folded my arms and leaned back in my hovering chair. Students outside my lounge still whispered my name like it was forbidden, like saying it too loud would summon me. I hated this part of being Aurelia. The reverence. The fear. The way everyone bent themselves into knots trying to impress me. No one ever talked to me. Not really. Except one person. Sword wannabe. My lips twitched at the name. Ridiculous. Crude. Unrefined. And completely unlike anyone I'd ever met. We'd first crossed blades 6 months ago in the Ashglass Arena, a realm-based training system licensed and maintained by the Arcane Military Directorate. Not a game. Not an illusion. Pain real, fatigue real, results very real. But no death unless your pride counted. I'd been bored. Everyone in the top tiers either groveled or broke the second I took them seriously. But he didn't. He fought like someone who had nothing to lose, gritty, messy, relentless. His sword style was full of unconventional stances and smooth fluxing of power that I still didn't really understand. This wasn't a polished style, but practical and unconventional. But there was beauty in the way he adapted. No pride. No wasted motion. No fear. He beat me. Badly. I hadn't stopped thinking about it since. In the last 6 months, our sparring sessions in the Ashglass Arena, one of the hardest practice dungeons inside the Crucible realms, had become my singular obsession. The Ashglass Arena was pure combat, brutal and unforgiving, designed to push mana users to their breaking point. But I had thought our friendship had transitioned. We also spent time in the Swordmaster's Sanctum, another specialized corner of the Crucible realms. The Sanctum was less about direct combat and more about scholarly pursuit, a magically conjured space where enthusiasts and scholars gathered to discuss the elusive Swordmaster's manuscript. Rumors claimed that fragments of the manuscript were hidden within various realms, waiting to be discovered by someone worthy a testament to techniques so powerful they could shift the balance of power. Sword Wannabe was undeniably obsessed with it, and his style, that was the real puzzle. While most mages relied on bursts of channeled mana or complex spell glyphs, his fluid control of mana, that near-invisible fluxing, was almost too controlled for the sheer power he unleashed. It hinted at a deeper understanding of mana than anything taught in conventional schools. But of course we never talked about anything related to our personal lives. "Stupid boy," I muttered, but there was no real heat to the words. More frustration. I reached for the MIF again but stopped. A half-eaten mana fruit floated nearby untouched since the plaza landing. My grand entrance to school was already trending on social media. That whole spectacle had been Mother's idea. Grand entrance, full diplomatic detail, aether silk uniform, combat class escorts. Ridiculous. It wasn't that I hated the attention. It was that it meant nothing. Everyone already knew who I was. Aurelia Taranis, heir of House Taranis. Daughter of High Enchantress Thalia, direct bloodline of the Starlight Collective. My mana affinity was the highest-ranked natural manifestation recorded in the kingdom in the last 100 years. My wings weren't vanity or artifice, they were a bloodline inheritance. Encoded spell structures passed down through 8 generations of spell-weaving brilliance tied specially to my mana signature. I didn't just hold Starlight mana. I was Starlight. I'd won duels at 9, crafted my first weapon circuit at 11, outmaneuvered trained officers by 15. They called me the best, expected it, demanded it, and it was exhausting, because the better I got, the less real everyone else felt. Their praise rang hollow. Their awe wore thin. No one challenged me, not really. Not without expecting to lose. Until I met him. He didn't know who I was. The realm's dungeons were made for anonymity, for people to not know who you are. He'd once called my specially forged swordsmanship a neat set of forms. He wasn't impressed. He wasn't intimidated. He joked with me, teased me, fought with me, called me out on my bullshit, and he never asked for more. He gave even less. No name, no history, just jokes and cryptic one-liners, but with surprising insight into life and times, and his movements told me things his words never would. Because in every spar, in every shift of stance, he made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Present. I tapped the crystal again, hoping. Nothing. Ugh, I muttered, pushing back from the desk. My stockings rustled softly beneath my skirt as I paced the chamber. My room was too elegant. 2 polished high windows, floating sigil lanterns, half a dozen spell-synced tablets. I'd take a cluttered sparring pit over this palace any day. "He's really not going to meet me," I whispered, annoyed and almost hurt. Aurelia Taranis, the most powerful prodigy of her generation, could command an entire fleet with a gesture. I had mages twice my age groveling for my signature, but I couldn't get one moody sword nerd to come say hi. I even showed him my shockingly clad legs. Who ignores that? Jerk. I sighed and pulled my long silver hair out of its bun. "I hate this school," I mumbled, but that wasn't true. I hated feeling alone, and worse, I hated that he didn't care about meeting me for no reason that I could see.